Thanks everybody for tuning in here. We're going to get on Facebook Live in a second, but I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. So if Brenda, you want to go ahead and get started, and I will troubleshoot on my end.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris, and thanks for the Chamber for hosting this. And we greatly appreciate it. I hope everybody was able to see the slide that was shown initially that had all of the great partners that were listed for this chamber, of course, the Hispanic Chamber, the Black Chamber, Visit Fort Worth Now, and so forth. So a lot of really great partners engaged in this. So we'll go ahead and get started. I am using the application guide for for-profit businesses. So there's a couple of little differences for nonprofits, and I'll try to hit up on those as we go through. Okay, so real quickly, this is the second phase of the Preserve the Fort Business Grant. The initial phase we launched in May. As of September 2nd, over 6.4 million had been provided to 881 companies. Again, the second round, we are expanding to include some larger businesses up to 500 employees and nonprofits and performing arts nonprofits. I do want to highlight that those applicants who received a grant earlier through phase 1 are able to apply again, assuming they meet the phase 2 eligibility requirements. I do want to highlight though that any proceeds that were awarded in phase 1 will be deducted from any phase 2 awards. And we are asking for the applicants to resubmit, as we are asking for different documents to go around. So let's go ahead and jump in. So to get started, the application is available at the fortworthtexas.gov, Preserve the Fort website. On that site, and we'll highlight this, there is a list of the paperwork that's required, the other documentation. So for example, if you are choosing to receive any grant funding via electronic fund transfer, you would need your bank account information. So all of that information is outlined on the Preserve the Fort grant website. We also have a how-to. This document actually that I'm going to be showing is available on there. We also have a video where I go ahead and submit a mock application. So you can literally watch me submit an application and go through a lot of the available information. So you go ahead at the bottom of the page, there is a Start My Application. You would click on that and you would set up or sign into an account. So if you are a first-time user, you would click on the Not a Member link and you would be able to set it up. If you're an existing user, you would insert your username and password. Your username is your email that you use to sign up. So again, to sign up, you're gonna do your first name, your last name, your email, which becomes your username. You're then going to receive a message that says check your email. So you go to your email and you have a message there. I apologize. So you would check your email. There would be a message there that shows a link where you would then go finish that setup. So jumping into the application, that's pretty well the first thing that you would see. You would get your option to translate the application using a drop-down menu at the top of the page. We are using Google Translate, so there are a lot of different languages available. In this case, the example, we use Spanish. So once you do start your application later today, this is a new feature, you'll be able to save for later. So again, that'll be added after this Facebook Live session, but you will be able to save for later. And that will take you back to your application already in progress when you go ahead and click back in So jumping into the application, the first thing you're going to see after the option to, again, translate and so forth, is the type of application. So in this case, we've highlighted small business or bar or music venue. The third option you'll see is nonprofit with 501c3 status. For each of those options, there is a certification that shows up first. This again highlights to confirm whether your information is correct. Any grants you receive might be subject to an audit. And of course, if they're not used appropriately, we could ask you to pay us back. So the certifications are first and foremost. We cannot accept the application without these certifications or a signature. Then it just scrolls right through. So it's all one page and it just scrolls there. Next item is general information. So tax identification number, also referred to as employer identification number. This is without the dashes or the hyphen in it. We do ask for a DUNS number. This is a federal requirement. We do include that link again on the website on how to get the DUNS number. It can take up to a day. So that is something that we are encouraging folks to, again, go to the website, take a look at all the information that is needed, and then have all of that available when you do start the application. If for some reason you don't have that, we do include the link on the application to get the DUNS number. Again, in this case, it's showing nonprofit category, but if we're focused on just the business, it's the business name and so forth. We are asking folks to write over and make sure they're including their business name in the document. We have a number of applications coming in where, because the personal name is filled in there, they're just leaving it as that. We are making sure that folks click on there and enter your business or organization name. We do, on the business application, ask for state of Texas certificate of formation, and that is available online. We've had some questions that if somebody doesn't have that certificate, will we accept other documents? We really are looking for that certificate of formation, or you can also get an assumed name document. So if you don't have that certificate of formation, that assumed name document is something that we can accept as well. So, and then also, this says 2019 federal tax return. It is the most recent tax return. We recognize that not everybody has 2019. So 2018 would be accepted as well. So I also want to highlight in both of these, we are asking folks to name their documents. That just really helps the reviewers know what they're looking at without having to necessarily keep clicking between them to, you know, what was that document again type thing. So we're asking that you just put your organization name. So XYZ Incorporated or ABC Inc., whatever that might be, and then the name of the document. So if it's the state of Texas certificate of formation or your federal tax returns, that's just incredibly helpful. Address and ownership information. I didn't show address because it's pretty basic. It's physical and mailing address. I do want to highlight though that if the address is not the city of Fort Worth, it needs to be. It's only eligible for, or this is only available to businesses and nonprofits that are located in the city of Fort Worth. So we really want folks to be double checking that. I do want to highlight ownership information. If you have multiple owners, you would check the multiple owner checkbox, and then that opens up the opportunity for additional owner. We are only asking for 2 owners. So we understand some businesses have more than 2, and that's perfectly fine, but we are only asking for the 2. So we would suggest you include the 2 with the highest percentage. If all happen to have 20%, for example, if you have 5 owners, then just select 2. We are only asking for 2 at this point in time. And then, of course, ethnic minority owned business information. Employment information, if under the question, if someone says yes, that they are a sole proprietor or independent contractor, the employment information will collapse. They will not need to fill that out. And again, that's only if they check yes to sole proprietor or independent contractor. And instead of proof of employment being the Q1 2020 941 document, it becomes their Schedule C. So this automatically kind of changes if someone selects yes. This example is if someone would choose no, then they would fill in their employment information. All of these fields are mandatory. So it's the employees as of March 13th, employees as of July 1st, and then they would upload their documents. And in this case, it's just the Q1. This page, we do show the examples. The green is an example of the 941. We would expect it again for Q1 of 2020. Again, we do highlight what would be helpful for the naming convention. And then likewise, we're showing an example Schedule C off of somebody's federal tax return if they are a sole proprietor independent contractor. Organization financials. This is the section that I would really refer folks to really make sure they're checking out these questions in advance and really be able to do the calculations so that for ease of completing the application, they can go ahead and fill this out. So gross annual revenue, and again, I'm going to go through and actually give some examples on all of these questions, but this is really the heart of what we need, so to speak. For-profit businesses, we have the two different calculations. We will be looking at the gross monthly revenue pre-COVID, so that March 1st, 2019 to February 29th, 2020 number. And when we say that we'll be doing, for small businesses, if it's 1.5 times that amount is what the eligible amount is. For bars and music venues that were impacted by the June executive order from the governor, that is 3 times. So that's the max eligible amount. So it's important to have this information accurate, and our reviewers will be confirming. Again, I want to go through some examples as we talk about those questions. So again, gross annual revenue in 2019, we're simply looking at that top line number, so to speak. That's sales revenue. It's also sometimes referred to as total gross sales. It can be a number of different things, but it's really that top line gross number. So in this example, it's 500,000. We're not looking at any of the other revenue or less sales returns or allowances or cost of goods sold, etc. We strictly are looking at that 500,000 top line. Excuse me. Then the next question, gross monthly revenue before COVID. Again, that's from March 1st, so it's really the 12 months before. It's March 1st, 2019 to February 29th, 2020. So you would look at your profit and loss statements monthly for that period of time. You would total up your gross annual revenue for those 12 months and then just strictly divide it by 12. In this example, I'm using 43,148 for discussion purposes. And we'll talk about then how that number plays out. And again, this is the number that is multiplied then by 1.5 times if a small business, or 3 times if a bar or music venue. If it's a nonprofit performing arts organization, it's 1.5 times this as well. So with that, we've also had a number of questions. If somebody wasn't operational for the full period of time from March 1st, 2019, let's say they opened in June of 2019, then you would just take that total up until February 29th, 2020, and divide it by the period of time. So however many months, in that case, it would be, 9 months. For the next question, the gross monthly revenue during COVID-19. So that's from March 1st through, and we're asking for either July 31st or August 31st. We understand that not everybody is going to have their August financials completed when they're completing the application. So July 31st is fine. If that's the case, they would use 5 months when they do their calculations. If it's through August, they would use 6 months. So for these purposes, I'm just, again, using the example. The business, let's say, was only partially open. Their gross monthly revenue decreased from what pre-COVID, the 43,000 to the 10,910. So what that means is then the total revenue loss for that period of time, again, we're going to use the same amount of time so that it's consistent. So if you use July 31st in your previous response, you're going to continue to use July 31st throughout the rest of the questions. So in this case, what you would do is you would take your post-COVID number, your 10,910, you would subtract it from your 43,148. So again, here's the example calculation. So your monthly loss in this example is 32,238 per month. But we're asking for the total revenue loss. So you would multiply it, if using July, by 5 months. So that gets you to the 161,190. Then we ask for that total increase in expenses during that post-COVID period of time. Again, that could be cleaning products, PPE, printing of menus, vehicle expenses because you're now delivering, whereas before maybe you didn't. If you're a restaurant, just a variety of examples. We just plugged in 1644 for discussion purposes. So again, what we're going to look at is this is really the number where we're calculating the potential eligibility. So we're going to, if this is a restaurant, for example, we would multiply that by 1.5, which equals 64,722. So this example, this business would potentially be eligible for 64,722. And then what we use the total revenue loss and the additional expenses for is to at least make sure that that number is equal to or greater than that formula for eligibility. So it's a couple of factors play in there. So that's why I wanted to use real numbers to really highlight how we're using that information. And again, we are using the profit and loss statements to confirm this information.
Brenda, can I hop for a quick second?
Yeah, please.
Because we had a question here, and I think you covered it, but I wanted to get ultra specific here to make sure that we understood that. The question is what do we do if we open the business on 1/1/20 and don't have any 19 information? So in that previous example, then how would the formula work? How should they do that if it was a 1/1/20 start?
Yeah. So a 1/1/20 start is admittedly a little bit of a challenge. One of the eligibility criteria is that the business had at least $12,000 in that gross income. So let me just jump back here. So in 2019, we need to see at least $12,000 here. So if somebody opened on January 1, 2020 and did not have at least that $12,000 in 2019, they unfortunately would not be eligible at this time. So one of the eligibility criteria for profits is that January 1, 2020 date. But we also have that second one of somebody having to have that 12,000 in revenue.
Okay, thank you.
So here's the example. Again, I mentioned that we do ask for the P&L statement for 2019 as well as the 2020. I do want to note that we are asking for 2020 to be shown by month. Again, in order for us to confirm the responses to those questions, we really do need the P&L in that monthly format. So we do ask for both of those. The 2019 can be annual, but the 2020 we do need by month. So we are asking folks to name their documents. I do want to use this slide to just highlight, here's an example of where a couple of documents, for example, have been uploaded. What if somebody finds out that they, realizes they uploaded the wrong document, all they have to do is click on the X, this red X, and it'll delete it and they can upload the other document. In order to upload documents, you can actually drag and drop, which is my preferred methodology actually, or you can click on the add file. You can see it says add file. You can click on the add file and it'll pull it up, the menu or the folder, and you can choose your file at that point in time. So there's a couple different ways to add documents. CARES Act funding, I want to highlight, we ask if somebody applied for the Paycheck Protection Program or Emergency Injury Disaster Loan Program. This is only required if you applied. So if the applicant did not apply, they don't have to respond. So I know we've had a number of folks say, I didn't reply, or I didn't apply, excuse me. That's not an option. It's only if you applied that then you choose what the status is. So the dropdown, for example, has applied, pending review, received. If you select received, then a space opens up for you to fill in how much you received. Likewise, on the nonprofit application, we ask a similar question for the Tarrant County non-governmental organization program. It's only if somebody applied. If they didn't apply, again, they can skip these questions. But if they did apply, we ask for the status. And if they received the funding from, for example, Tarrant County or the PPP program, then when they select approved, then it shows the dollar amount opens up. We do ask if if the applicant will be applying for other preserve the poor entities, and then if you select yes, again, it opens up another option where you can enter in those other business names. So it's pretty easy. You just type in the other business names. We do ask, the use of funding. So this is CARES Act dollars that are paying for this grant. So we do have restrictions on what the funds can be used for. So we do ask how they will be used. We will be following up. So we're getting ready to do the follow-up on the phase 1 awards. And so we will be following up. We will be asking for documentation, how the awardees utilize the funds, and that does include receipts and other appropriate documents. So this will be something that we will be following up on. And then we do ask how they would like to receive the funds. So if somebody uses, the options here is either a mailed paper check. If somebody uses selects mailed paper check, we will then mail a check to the address provided in the application. So I cannot emphasize enough to make sure you're entering the correct address. We had a number of addresses that we unfortunately had to reissue checks for. And so double check your information. Likewise, if you choose electronic fund transfer, then the bank information opens up and we'll ask you to provide your institution information, including routing number and account number. And again, triple check that information to make sure that if you are awarded this grant, we can get you the funding in a timely manner. And then just the final document is a completed W-9. Oops, I just skipped it. I want to highlight, we do include links to how to get this document. So we need the information filled in, this yellow box, but then We also need folks to make sure they're signing it. So it appeared last time for phase one, we had a lot of unsigned documents. So I don't know if folks just missed it. I think the other issue is some of these fillable PDFs, depending upon what kind of system you're using, it doesn't always save the signature. So I would just strongly encourage applicants to double check that as well to make sure that all of the information is filled in and legible. We do need it to be legible, and then the signature is completed as well. So here again, I cannot emphasize enough to just make sure the information that's being entered is accurate so that we can get through these as quickly as possible. Our goal, of course, is to get the funds out as fast as we can. So we just encourage folks to get their applications submitted. We do have a general contact number available Monday through Friday from 9 to 6. This is not for document preparation or any of those kind of specifics. It's just a general question. Examples include, you know, I have multiple businesses. Can I apply for multiple? Can I apply for all of them, or do I have to submit one? What does that look like? The answer, by the way, is if you have multiple businesses and they have separate tax identification numbers, then you need to complete an application for each one of those businesses with that tax ID, with those independent tax ID numbers. If you have, let's say, 4 locations in Fort Worth and all of them are under one umbrella with one tax ID number, then you would use the information for all 4 of those locations as an example. So we do on the website also have a list of FAQs, frequently asked questions, and we are adding to that daily. So we are including examples, we're you know, adding links. So one of the questions we've been asked a lot is if we have to have the profit and loss statements in a specific format. And the answer there is no, as long as we get the specific information. So we need to make sure that it's comprehensive and we're getting the information we need. But we wanted to allow flexibility so people could pull it out of whatever system they might be using. If they do use a accountant, you know, they can get it in whatever format the accountant typically provides it. But we do need to be making sure we have that information. So under the FAQ, we do have that question, but we did include some links to templates, just if folks want to take a look at that. I do want to emphasize also on the website is we do have a volunteer pool of individuals who can help with the application and can help with the documentation associated with the application. So if there's questions, just a variety of things, they've been really fantastic. There is a calendar, so you can choose if you want that assistance. You can go ahead and choose. We do have volunteers in both English and Spanish speaking at this point in time, and those calendars are available. There's weekend, evening hours, so a really good resource for individuals as well. Our goal is to get all of this money out the door by early December. So I do want to highlight on the nonprofit social service, it is a reimbursement. So what I went through on the application was really the for-profit, and then also touched upon the arts organization a little bit. The nonprofit social service is a reimbursement of PPE type expenses in order to open up for volunteers, employees, customers, etc. And that is a reimbursement. So that is unbudgeted expenses. And then we're asking for what that total estimate is through March 1st through October 31st. And then the documents will need to be provided to us by November 15th. And then we'll reimburse actuals up to 75%. So again, that one is a little bit different. So that's the last I had on the actual presentation.
Great. Thank you for that. Brenda, one other question, and then what I thought we'd do is I'll pull up the website, and maybe we can
Perfect.
website so everybody can see that. The other
Stop
question,
sharing.
this might be a little bit of overlap with the last question, but while we opened for business in 1/1/21, owners did not take a paycheck until May. No other employees were hired until May as well. So no quarter one form 941 was filed. What do I do?
Well, so then I would anticipate that their answer would be 0 when they when that dropped down. So because their answer would be no to sole proprietors in this example, and then their answer though for the March 13th question would be 0, but then we do ask for a number of employees for July 1st. So we would anticipate based on that example or that question that we would have July 1st employment number. They could either just fill out a 941 that shows 0, or they could make a note. We do have folks that have been loading documents that just say, you know, we didn't hire anyone until X date.
Okay, great. So I shared my screen here, and hopefully everybody's seeing this, the Preserve the Fort website on the City of Fort Worth's website. So Brenda, I don't know if you want to walk through any of the, you get these partner resources over here, and we can just kind of scroll down through here. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what some of these different resources are.
Yeah, so I mentioned at the beginning, all of the great partners that are involved in this, all of them have different resources available for small businesses. Just with the Fort Worth Chamber, for example, they've been the lead on the personal protective equipment, the PPE for small businesses. So more information about that, for example, is available. Likewise, the webinar series and the HR questions have been absolutely fantastic. So just a lot of really good resources. All of these partners have the different tools and opportunities for small businesses. So just wanted to make sure and highlight all of the really amazing opportunities out there. And then under business for profit information, for example, we do list, if you want to, there you go, business eligibility and ineligibility. So we just encourage folks to take a look at it. You'll see there we do have that bullet about the minimum of 12,000 gross, for example, in 2019. Chris, if you go to the third, so here again is what the funding can be used for. So we do look at that. We obviously need to make sure it's the eligible use. These are federal dollars. I can tell you I was on the phone on Friday doing in kind of a spot check. Don't want to quite call it an audit, but a spot check of the phase 1 documentation. And use of funds was definitely something that I was asked about on Friday afternoon. So that is very important. Perhaps the final 2 drop downs in each of the sections that are probably my favorites and the most important is what do I need to apply, and then the application instructions. So the what do I need to apply, which is the next section, is that list of documentation, the naming that we're asking for folks. Again, the links that you can access, so DUNS number, for example, I mentioned earlier that that is a federal requirement. That can potentially take up to 24 hours to get that number. So that is definitely something that we're encouraging applicants to go ahead and get that information ready for that. Likewise, under the other documents available for reference, banking institution, making sure that you have that available. So when you jump in and do the application, it really should only take about 10 minutes, if that, if you have all of your information. It actually goes pretty quickly if you have all of this pre-calculated, so to speak, and ready to go. The PowerPoint that I just went through is available under application instructions. We have it in both English and Spanish. There's a couple of additional screenshots that I'm going to include in that, so I'll work with our marketing to get that updated. But it is available, so it's a really great resource. And then I mentioned that video I did this weekend. So literally I went through and I completed an application. So if anybody wants to watch me talk through an application and do it, it's available on that video. So all of the same information is available also for the nonprofit organizations in the next section. And then if you can scroll down past the nonprofit information, please. Here's where we have that document assistance and the frequently asked questions. So if you click on the schedule an appointment now, it will bring up a calendar that shows all of the available options. So you'll see that there are options on Saturday and Sundays. If you scroll down here, you'll see the last one in that case is 5:30. A lot of Saturday options. So we do have some that also go as late as 6:37. I think I even saw an 8 p.m. on one of them. So definitely have a lot of options. These are half an hour calls or up to a half an hour where a volunteer will call, we'll talk through the application, we'll talk through any documentation questions you may have. If you need some assistance, they can help with the profit and loss statement, for example. So a really great resource available for folks. And then in that section as well, just below that, is the frequently asked questions. So this is, we are adding to this almost, well, daily it feels like. So here's right where your mouse is, actually where I used the example earlier. If there was a specific template I should use for my P&L statement, here we have a couple of links on how to use it. Or a couple of templates, I should say, available for folks. So a lot of really great questions that have been coming into our volunteers or applicants have been calling or emailing asking us about. So we've been trying to just get that information up there. So we just really strongly encourage folks to go ahead and take a look at the website, spend some time looking at that. I think it would be it's actually a pretty easy application once you have the information pulled together. So we recognize that that information is key. Again, so offering those resources. Really an important kind of note is the application window is open until 11:59 p.m. on October 2nd. So right now it's open until Friday, October 2nd at 11:59. And we do highlight that in a couple of places throughout the website. I know it's at the end again, but we want to make sure that folks are getting their applications in and so we can get this money out.
Great. Well, good. Well, I had a couple of questions that actually got texted to me, but I think we've answered them all. One question is about, needing the help, but as you said down here, schedule that appointment. There's a whole list of volunteers that are available to help walk through a lot of this documentation. I mean, go back up here to the, where was it, Brenda, here?
What do I need to apply? Yes, sir.
That can be really mind-boggling to a lot of folks. And so, utilize those volunteers that we have. These are business people. These are members of the community that understand this stuff. So please utilize those folks. And then the other question, Brendan, I don't know if this is a real good question, because obviously you want to fill out all of the application as be complete as possible. What are some of those key decision-making criteria? You talked about the finances and when you started your business and some of the those boxes you got to check. But as your volunteers are looking through the applications, what are some of those big things that our listeners here need to recognize? They got to be thorough and they got to answer these questions specifically, because these are the things that your team is looking at as they're looking at doling out the cash.
Yeah, absolutely. So, those items at the beginning, the basic eligibility, we have a lot of those. We do a system check on that. So City of Fort Worth, for example, we will run addresses that are provided to us through a number of different vetting processes to ensure that the funds that we're using are staying in the City of Fort Worth. And again, that's a federal mandate that we can only use these funds in the City of Fort Worth. So we do a number of those checks for the that base eligibility amount, or base eligibility for all of the applicants. So example, that $12,000. In the case of our social service nonprofits, they could not exceed a gross 2019 revenue of 10 million. For the nonprofits arts organizations, that number is 25 million. So we do that eligibility check on all of the applications. And then from there, the key is really our reviewers really use the documents that are provided to confirm the responses to the questions. So those financial questions, for example, our reviewers will use the 2019 profit and loss statement, the 2020 monthly P&Ls to confirm the responses. If anything doesn't quite, if the numbers don't add up, or if there's questions, if the documents that were provided don't answer those questions or don't help to answer them, our reviewers do have the opportunity and are encouraged to follow up with applicants to get more information. So just an example, in phase 1, we received 1,397 applications. We followed up with over 800 applicants to get clarification and or ask for additional information. We had a lot of lessons learned, which is why some things are the way they are in phase 2. So we're hoping that we can get through the applications a little quicker and have the information needed. We do encourage people, you actually have the funding levels pulled up for nonprofits, for example, but that's also available on the for-profit side. We do encourage people to take a look at and do the calculations. Anybody who did receive phase 1 funding, as I mentioned, will have that award deducted from any phase 2 funding. Last week, I worked with a couple of applicants who, when we did those calculations, we realized that they would receive either 0 because of the deduction basically wiped out their phase 2 award, so to speak, or it was very little. And so in their case, they're going to decide whether or not they're going to apply. So all of that's available, and we just encourage people to go ahead and do that calculation. And again, that's the max award amount. And then I should mention they're capped too. So each of these are capped.
Okay, I'm glad we brought this up, because I know that one of the questions that we've gotten is, what is a small business? And it says it right here, less than 500 people. So they, you look at 500 employees or less, that is a significant share of the business community. So even though, you might not yourself consider yourself a small business, but less than 500 people, you are eligible for this program. And then down here, I wanted to highlight this as well. The businesses who are received are still eligible for another round of funding. So, apply early and often. Brenda, did we miss anything? We've been through a lot of information. We've been on, been doing this for about 45 minutes now. Is there anything else that we should be thinking about?
I just encourage folks to take advantage of those volunteers. Again, they've been absolutely fantastic. As Chris mentioned, they are members of the community. They do this on a regular basis as far as the financial, so they're a great resource. And we just want to thank all the partners. Thanks for bringing this slide up, Chris. Again, lots of partners. This does remind me, though, United Way is our partner for the funding side of things. So this money is from the CARES Act. It came into the City of Fort Worth We then work with United Way though, so that the payments are actually made from the United Way. So if it's a check, it'll come in an envelope from United Way. If it's a bank transfer, it comes and it will say on your statement United Way. So that did create some confusion in phase one. People were looking for City of Fort Worth, but we have partnered with United Way. So a little bit streamlined on getting those payments out the door.
Yeah. And, you know, I brought this up for a reason too, Brenda, you know, all 6 and 7 of those partners down there, you know, everybody can help on this, you know, and we have the resources through that website we just showed. You know, each one of these chambers, you know, certainly we can reach out to them and ask questions. Fort Worth Now, Jarrett Watkins, you know, info at fwtxnow.com. You know, they are available to help. And then, you know, another thing I've got here I wanted to bring up, if, you know, we have a online forum as well. And it's one of those things that not everybody's aware of. And so you can certainly scan that QR code if you want to, and it'll take you to that forum. But another opportunity to post questions and have those questions answered by professionals as well. So I guess the bottom line is there's all kinds of resources out there. Don't feel as a business owner that you just don't know and the application might be too tough or you don't understand. There's far too many resources out there to help you and answer the questions and get those dollars flowing into the community. So appreciate everybody's time today in looking through this. We're going to put this out on Facebook. It's going to be on our social media, and we're going to share it with the other chambers as well. And they're going to share it on their social media as well as Fort Worth Now. So if anybody has any questions, you know, leading up this, do not hesitate to reach out and contact us. Like I said, we just want to get those dollars out the door and to the companies to help you succeed. So Brenda, really appreciate your time taking the afternoon here with us and walking through this. I think it's been a great session.
All right. Well, thanks for hosting, Chris, and thanks everyone for joining us, and get your applications in.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Brenda. Have a great rest of the day.
All right. Bye.
Bye.